If you remember our clock project, the app did some different things when we set it to the background or we went back to the home screen altogether. So let's see how our UnitConverter app behaves when we do that. So let's go ahead and run it. Wait for it to come back. And so you see it works as expected. I'll change the temperature. So 16 degrees is 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, let's go ahead and Shift Command H, which kind of sends our app to the background. Let's open it back up again. Still says 60 degrees, okay. So let's Shift Command H twice, and let's quit the app. Okay, so it's stopped. Now let's start it, and notice it goes back to 32. So it would be nice to actually remember the last selected temperature. And so we could do that by trying to save things in the lifecycle methods. But we're going to use something called NSUserDefaults, which is a way to save simple user data into what are called property list files or plist files. And whenever you save user data, it gets saved into this plist file. So I'm going to open up my Finder window, and I'm in the library folder. And the easiest way to get there is to go to go to folder, and then do the ~/library/. Now, the property list files are really, really buried. So, if you download the lesson plan for this unit, you can see the full path, but it's library, developer, course simulator, devices. Again, this is a list of all the devices I've run over time, the different configurations and so on. I'm pretty sure that this is the device I've been using because it's the most recent date. Then I'm going to go to data, containers, data again, application. Then I have to find the app ID. I think, again, this is the most recent one I want, so it's February 4th. And then library, and then preferences. If you have not saved any preferences, you probably won't see this file yet. So if you did this, it might be blank, but mine, since I've been playing with this, I have some data already here. So let's go ahead, now that we have that found, let's go ahead and try to implement some of that functionality. Okay. So we are going to set up some NSUserDefaults after we pick a row. So let's go to my didSelectRow, and I'm going to add a little space here. I'm going to say let defaults equal NSUserDefaults. I'm going to use what are called standard user defaults. Okay, so that just initializes those defaults. And I'll say defaults dot set integer. So the way user defaults work is by a key value pair, almost like a dictionary we saw in the space adventure. So I give it some sort of value for a particular key. Since I'm using the set integer, I'm going to give it a number value. There are other things like set string, and you can investigate the documentation to see what other kind of data you can set with NSUserDefaults. So, but since I'm saving a temperature, I'm going to do set integer. And the integer I'm going to set is the row number. So the row that I get that's picked. And then for key, and again, this key can be anything I want. It's just how I can pick the row. So I'll call it default Celsius, can't spell Celsius, picker row. Okay. So now I've created the user defaults, and it's going to set that integer. It's going to be the row number, and I've just this arbitrary key so that I can refer to it later. And then the last thing I do is to write that data is I do defaults dot synchronize, and that saves that data to my plist file. So let's go ahead and run this. And again, remember I'm saving the row number. So right now it's at row probably 100, since there's 200 rows and I'm halfway through. So this might be 105 or 106. So every time I choose a new value, it's updating that NSUserDefaults. So let's just see if that's true. So let me go back to my Finder, and you can see the date has been modified. Let's go ahead and open this up. And you can see the row is 110, and it gives me the default Celsius picker row value here, or the key. Okay, and I'm at 110. So it seems to be saving that value. So good. So now we have it saved. But before we try to retrieve that information, notice that our didSelectRow method is actually doing two things. And really it's important for one method to have one function. So it's actually displaying the temperature and saving defaults. So let's go ahead and create two new methods. Let's call it function display converted temperature for row. And it's going to take one parameter, a row, and it'll be of type int. It's not going to return anything. And I can take this information and I will cut that and put it into my display converted temperature. And then I will make another method, function save selected row. And again, it will take a row of type int, not return anything. And let's take these user defaults, put them in this method. So now all I have to do is call those two methods and pass it the row each time. So display converted temperature for row, row, and save selected row for the row. So now when didSelectRow is selected, it calls these two methods, each of which does its own function. You can see our code is starting to get kind of long, and when you have strings like this, they tend to get lost in the shuffle. So if anything ever changes, it's hard to find that in the code. So I'm actually going to make this string a constant up at the top. So I'm going to do let user defaults last row key. Okay, so user defaults last row key equal, and then I'll paste in that key. And then I can change this to user defaults last row key. So again, as I put this in more and more places, I only have to change it in one spot if I need to, so it doesn't get buried within my app. Let's stop the app and let's run it one more time to see if this works. Okay, so I'll select a row. That's great. 18 degrees, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's go ahead and quit the app. Now let's restart it again. And notice it's back to the default temperature. So while we've saved the data, we have not yet figured out how to retrieve it, which we'll do in the last lesson in the UnitConverter project.